In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at these remnants of Hurricane Ian because this storm is looking pretty intense as of right now. It's actually hitting my neck of the woods with the outer bands, and it is really stormy outside. I'm sure it's worse the further south you go towards that low pressure center. Really, really bad over there. We're going to be taking a look at the upcoming pattern as well, where we basically are going to be in an Arctic blast pattern for the next 10 days at least. So we're going to be going over those things among some other things, including some snowfall. Let's get into this video, and first things first, we're taking a look at our current radar imagery, where again, this storm is just impacting a lot of the southeast at this point, including my neck of the woods there in eastern Virginia. We can see that there is also some storminess happening out west with a bit of a storm system, and then a little bit of action going on in between. We'll talk about that also. We'll start out west as always. It always amazes me that people think I don't focus on the west when I always start with the west. It probably annoys the people in the east, actually, that I always start out west. We see that there is some snow happening here in the very high mountains of Idaho, and I also saw some happening, I think, down somewhere else. Yeah, Wyoming here. Some of these mountain ranges, I'll show you the three that I always notice get the first snowfall of the year. It's always these mountains in Idaho, this mountain range here in Wyoming, and then this mountain range here can tend to get some snowfall as well pretty early on. Up there. We also see some of Montana getting some snowfall as well. So some of these highest mountain ranges are getting some of this snowfall early on. Everywhere else, though, seeing a lot of rainfall. It's kind of moving in this motion right now. Definitely bringing some impacts, including some heavier rainfall in spots, especially Wyoming down through southern Montana there, it looks like. Definitely worth mentioning. We can see that areas here in the plains, we see lighter precipitation and definitely more isolated. Could develop into some thunderstorms a little bit later on, depending, because this type of isolated activity tends to be more of, your isolated thunderstorm activity. And then we can see the remnants of Ian, which really, I mean, it is, I'm pretty sure, a Category 1 still at this point. It did upgrade to a Category 1 yesterday. Kind of surprisingly, kind of not. I alluded to the fact that this storm definitely could start to drop in pressure again, and it certainly did. It went up in intensity quickly, and it went up to Category 1 status again. So this storm, I think, just is one of those storms that always overperforms and should be taken very, very seriously. It will be a tropical storm probably by the time it gets over land, but again, overperforms, so keep that in mind. We do have heavy precipitation happening throughout this entire area here. It's windy up here in Virginia, very windy with these bands, so I can only imagine what it feels like here along this, Carolina coasts here. Probably very, very, very intense. We see flood warnings coming in for coastal South Carolina there. Definitely, the closer you get to the heart of this storm, the worse it is. So this band here, once this starts to come on shore, which for Charleston it's just now doing, that is probably where we're seeing the flooding rainfall and the highest winds with this storm. That inner band right there, which this would be the eye wall if the storm still had an eye wall really like that. So we need to take that very, very seriously. Outside of that, these outer bands in here are probably the second worst, and then these ones that are being thrown way far away are probably the least concerning ones at this point, believe it or not. But looking outside, it's hard to imagine that. So yes, this storm is still very, very impactful, very dangerous, still bringing very strong winds and flooding rains to many different states, actually. So Ian continues to cause major impacts into September 30th today. I can't believe October is coming up soon. Now, what we're going to do is move on, focus in on the upcoming pattern. We'll also talk a little bit about the tropics, where we have a new area of concern in the Atlantic, potentially headed towards our part of the Atlantic, unfortunately. Now, here we are taking a look at the precipitation type, and this is just going to show us where this storm is going to head. We can see this is going to head inland and continue to bring rainfall to these spots. Actually, some spots might see rainfall for a couple of days here with this system. We see it turns back around and it's just still hanging out. This is by Monday, October 3rd. So all the way through the weekend, we're still seeing some precipitation with this one. Becomes a nor'easter and it's still around by Wednesday, October 5th. Hard to believe that. October 6th, it finally moves out. And then what we're kind of left with is we have some storminess here, a bit of a cold front perhaps there. And then we see this Arctic blast really head through. We see a huge ridge out west and then a big old trough here in the east. Definitely a classic pattern, and we stay that way all the way through to the 10th. So again, it's going to be pretty much an Arctic blast pattern that we're going to find ourselves in here Total precipitation through the next 10 days, if you're anywhere in the whites, we're expecting practically no precipitation there. Your grays will be a tenth of an inch or less of precipitation. Your greens will be a half an inch, or better yet, a tenth of an inch to half an inch. Your blues will be a half an inch to an inch. Your yellows will be an inch to 2 inches. Your reds will be 2 to 5 inches. And then your browns will be 5 to 10, which we get some of that there for South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia, with, again, what is left of Ian, which is still quite a bit at this point, but later on it will dissipate more and more and more over the coming days. Now, total snowfall over the next 10 days, we're increasing greatly here. I want to mention a couple of areas here. We do see trace amounts here through the northern portions of the central and eastern United States, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan there, and then the Adirondacks and the White Mountains. We see some of that going on. But I would like to draw our attention to the Rockies here because there is some interesting things happening. We expect snowfall throughout all of these mountain ranges here. Your grays will be anywhere from a dusting, if anything. Your blues will be 2 to 6 inches of snowfall. Your purples will be 6 to 10. Your pinks will be 10 to 20. And then your pastels here, which we're seeing a lot for Colorado, Wyoming there, that is where we're at 20 to about 30, 35 inches of snowfall. And if it turns pastel purple a little bit there, which we see some of this going on here for portions of central Colorado, that is where we're, over 30 inches of snowfall there. We see a maximum of 34.9 somewhere in here, according to this model. You can see this at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Somewhere in there, 34.9 inches of snowfall. Definitely going to be snow-capped mountains, in other words. So let's go ahead and take a look at the temperature pattern real quickly. And as you can see, we already have an Arctic blast in place. This air mass has blasted down from the Arctic regions into the United States. Again, it's an Arctic air mass that has blasted. That is an Arctic blast. Regardless of if it's 15 degrees outside or if it's 50 degrees outside, I think the one thing that is always true with an Arctic blast is it will bring below normal temperatures because the Arctic will always usually be colder than the United States. So if air is truly blasting from the Arctic regions, it will bring temperatures that are a little bit closer to what the Arctic experiences rather than what the United States experiences, therefore bringing below normal temperatures. We can see this just sticks around for quite a while, actually. So this is all the way to the 5th here, Wednesday the 5th. And then look at this. We have our next area blasting down. It's moving extremely fast here, and this air mass is just going to blast into the eastern United States. As true of a definition of an Arctic blast as you can really get. It's hard to really say that that's not an Arctic blast, especially now we have these far below normal temperatures being featured in this green area here, 10 to 15 degrees below what is normal for this time of year. Very crazy stuff here. And that's going to be October 8th, 9th, 10th. And we can see this is the end of the model run. We're still in below normal temperatures here in the east. It really doesn't give up at all. And the interesting thing to note is by October 10th, that's 10 days from now, our average temperatures will be about 3 to 5 degrees lower than they are now because we're really into the descent towards winter now. We're approaching October. We're going to be in October. The descent towards winter is going to be in full force effect, basically. So you're dropping by a degree every other day or so. So it's important to keep that in mind. Definitely rapidly declining those temperatures. So 10 degrees below normal in 10 days is going to be more like 15 degrees below what the normal is right now, if that makes sense. Or if we're 15 degrees below normal in 10 days, it's going to be more like 20 degrees below what we're experiencing for normal right now. So things are going to be changing, plus below normal temperatures moving in, which is going to be even more cold than what we're experiencing, if that makes sense. I know I got a little bit confusing there. Let's take a look at the 5-day graphical tropical weather outlook real quickly. Now here we are. We see Ian, obviously Hurricane Ian still. I want to see if we can get any details. Well, we're going to take a look at it in a second anyway. We have this area in our MDR, main development region here, where I need to refresh this clearly. Sometimes it gets where you can't hover. There we go. Okay. 85 miles per hour. Definitely a very strong storm. That's actually stronger than expected a little bit there. 984 millibar low pressure center. So Ian is still a strong hurricane right now. This area of disturbance only has a 10% chance of development over the next 48 hours. So this is definitely a long range area that is going to form later on if it does. And over the next 5 days, we have a medium 60% chance of development, so definitely increases in chance later on. So this one is going up in probability quite greatly, actually, as time moves on. We're going to need to watch this one because this direction, when you see one start here off of Africa and be headed almost directly towards the west here, this one's trajectory as of right now looks like it would go north of the Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Haiti, if anything, which usually gives it a better chance of development. Obviously, that's not what we saw Ian do, as Ian went underneath and came through. That's the less likely. Usually, those storms don't have a good chance of development compared to the ones that go north of there. But we saw an outlier in Ian because Ian was one of the worst storms we've ever seen, quite frankly, and it did start underneath. So anything is possible. It's important to keep that in mind. Anyway, guys, that's it for this video. This has just been a big update on everything going on. We have more tropics to track. October is still a pretty active tropical month, so this is not over. Although it has been an extremely quiet hurricane season thus far, Ian has been something that would make you think it hasn't been. Ian has been one of the worst storms I've ever, I didn't experience it firsthand, but I feel like I did because I saw so many videos. I paid attention to the radar. I saw everything happening. And that, again, I mentioned in the stream, but that area, particularly the Tampa Bay area, is somewhere I'm very familiar with. It's just one of the worst storms I've ever tracked in general. Maybe the worst, just considering where it hit and everything. Just terrible, terrible, terrible situation. We're going to continue to track the tropics this upcoming month. Stay tuned with us. Be sure to subscribe as we do upload daily. Be sure to like the video if you did find it interesting or useful. Also, be sure to leave a comment down below with your thoughts, and I'll see you guys in the next video.